What is up, everyone? Welcome to round 4 of the Portland Monthly Premodern Paper Magic Afternoons June 2025 tournament. We got 2 rad decks to show you, so let's get into it. First up, we have TK with Jund Wurm. Now, I'm going to be a little biased here because this is actually a deck I loaned TK with some slight modifications that he wanted to make, but this list was inspired by the main Discord. I forget the user who actually posted it, but Black-Green Worm has been something that's been experimented with in the meta to some success, but this user wanted to try something a little bit different and add red to make it full-blown Jund. While being in 3 color does make the mana base quite a bit worse, you do have a layer land in Diagra's Caldera to help, and also it does let you play both Wooded Foothills and Bloodstained Mires, so up to 8 total fetches. The added benefit of those fetches is you also get to play Rotting Giant, which is a 2 mana 3/3 zombie giant that whenever it attacks or blocks, sacrifice it unless you can remove a card in your graveyard from the game. That may not seem like a huge incentive to play this deck, but a 2 mana 3/3 with arguably a pretty minimal drawback when you're constantly putting fetch lands and spells in your graveyard is pretty nice. The rest of the deck is all about aggro and hand attack. The key card of the deck is Tempting Worm, which is a 2 mana 5/5, which yes is quite a bit better than Rotting Giant. However, it does have the drawback where when Tempting Worm ETBs, your opponent may put into play any number of artifacts, creatures, enchantments, and or land cards from their hand into play, arguably giving your opponent carte blanche to put their entire hand into play just so you can get a 2 mana 5/5 is not usually the best, so this deck backs it up with tons of hand attack. We got 3 Ravenous Rats, 3 Hypnotic Specters, 4 Duress, and 3 Cabal Therapy. There's even 2 Funeral Charm to aid with the discard, but is also just an excellent way to push damage or take out small opponent creatures. Getting into the spells, we have 4 Call the Herds, 4 Terminates, 2 Naturalize, 4 Lightning Bolts, 2 Sylvan Libraries. The messy mana base is 1 Forest, 3 Swamps, 2 Mountains, 2 Diagra's Calderas, 3 Landwar Wastes, 3 Wooded Foothills, 3 Gemstone Mines, works really great with layer lands, 2 Sulphur Springs, and 4 Bloodstained Mires. In the sideboard, we have 2 Phyrexian Furnaces, 3 Red Elemental Blasts, 1 Harmonic Convergence, the 3rd and 4th Naturalize, 1 Smother, 3 Pyroclasms, and 3 Engineered Plague. This is a really fun list, and I'm glad we got TK to play it on camera. Before we get to see it do its thing, who's he playing against? Well, I always love seeing a classic, and Terrence is bringing it with Blue-Green Madness. This is the survivalist version and is usually one of the first decks that players are recommended when joining the format. I'm not sure if Terrence is new to the format or a long-time player, but this is still a very strong deck and can have a very high ceiling if you know what you're doing. If you're not familiar with the deck, it's all about discard. We have flashback cards, we have madness cards, we have counter spells that get better with the more cards you have in your graveyard and get cheaper when you discard them, and even a couple of cards that give all your threats flying, assuming they're in the graveyard. This is a tempo deck through and through, and it looks like it's pretty stock. So let's get into the list real quick. For creature threats, he has 4 Arrogant Worms, 4 Aquamoebas, which are excellent discard outlets, 4 Basking Root Wallas, which are excellent cards to discard, 1 Waterfront Bouncer, 2 Wonders, which are those creatures that give you flying, assuming you have an island in play, 4 Wild Mongrels, which are the real all-star of the deck and the best discard outlet of the deck, and 2 Roar the Worms, which are technically a spell, but do get cheaper when they're in the graveyard, and who doesn't love a 6/6 for 4 mana? As for spells, he's got 3 Careful Studies, 2 Deep Analysis, 4 Circular Logic, and 4 Days make up the counterspell suite. He also has 4 Frantic Search, which is probably the second best discard outlet, although sometimes can be much better than Wild Mongrel in the right situation, and 2 Gush. So plenty of card draw, plenty of discard, and plenty of threats. Mana base is pretty straightforward as well. You do need a lot of islands for those gushes, and he is running 9, 7 forests, and 4 Yavimaya Coasts. As for the sideboard, it looks like he has 2 Annuls, 4 Hydroblasts, 4 Naturalize, 2 Snap, 2 Tormod's Crypt, and the 2nd Waterfront Bouncer. Always love seeing this list, and it's always an interesting matchup when it goes against a discard-heavy deck. Both decks trying to get Terrence's hand in the graveyard make for some interesting lines, and I'm sure it's going to be a fun one, so let's get into the games. And here we go. TK is on the left, Terrence is on the right. As I mentioned in the deck tech, both players trying to do similar things, and that is put Terrence's hand in the graveyard. Terrence obviously wanting to pick when that happens, but does have some decent payoffs just in case, well, a random discard hippie gets a little unlucky. It looks like he has two of those in hand. He has a Wonder and a Basking Root Wallow, both excellent targets to be hit with discard. TK going to start us off here fetching. And what are we grabbing? Looks like a mountain. And it's just going to be passing after that, looks like. Yep. Going to do a little shortcutting here. Terrence going to play out the Basking Root Wallow. Might as well if you have nothing else to do on turn one. And giving away exactly what his deck is going to be doing. There's only one deck that plays Basking Root Wallow. Well, one established deck at least. There's always a chance that there could be some kind of crazy brew, but definitely giving TK a little bit of pause here. No, he's actually just going to go straight for the Ravenous Rats. Discard card of your choice. Don't show me your hand. And Wonder, I imagine, go into the bin. Yes, looks like. All right. Untap, draw for turn. Another great target for discard there in Deep Analysis. You never really want to be casting it unless it's very much late game value. Root Wall are going to get in. Terrence thinking about buffing it, opting not to. Just a point, taking TK to 18. And there's the star of the show, Wild Mongrel. Wild Mongrel being able to discard a card from Terrence's hand to give it +1/+1 and a color of his choice. There is enough removal spells in this format that do care about color, however, Terminate is not one of them. In response, gonna discard Roar the Worm. Makes sense. Get that in the bin while you can. And then TK gonna play Baggra's Caldera. I don't know why he's flipping it because it's in Japanese. I apologize to Terrence. This is not maybe the most beginner-friendly deck. However, it does let him return a land. Well, he has to return a land, I should say. And there's a Funeral Charm. And TK really pushing for the discard here. He can kill the Basking Root Wall if he really wanted to. There's no way for the Root Wall to pump. But maybe... Okay, he is going to do that. Okay, so explain all the modes. It looked like he was going to go for discard, but giving your Blue-Green Madness opponent the chance to pick what they discard is not great. But yes, does see the line, takes care of the Root Wall. Alright, there's Daze. Island for turn. And doesn't have much to do right here. If TK gives him another chance to discard, looks like he will. Yep, just gonna play out that worm. Get a nice little 4/4 for 3 thanks to the Madness cost, and this is the downside of giving your opponent a choice on discard. TK doesn't have a removal spell in hand currently, so he's going to just be taking the 4. And Terrence does have the Daze backup. Ooh, and a Circular Logic. However, without a discard outlet, that Circular Logic is a bit worse. He can still hard cast it currently. So there's a Call of the Herd there for TK. That might be what he decides to lead with. Yes. That Caldera can tap for green, so not having to take a point from the Llanowar Wastes. And Terrence deciding if he wants to counter it. It looks like he will. He'll just hard cast the Circular Logic. Terrence does have 4 cards in the graveyard, so it costs 4 to play it. Will get countered. And just gonna continue to swing in for 4. Say go. Ooh, there's a Duress. TK. Just going to fire it off now. Not even play a land yet. And 2 days. And a deep analysis that we knew about. I think you just take one of the days here. Yeah. Giving your opponent deep analysis in the graveyard is never great. And you can't hard cast it now. Okay, land for turn. A tap for 4 to flashback Call of the Herd, which will get dazed. Interesting playing into the daze there. Maybe just wanting to get rid of it, but TK's at the point where he has so much mana that you could just play around the daze for ever. Alright, opting also not to block here with the Ravenous Rats. Okay, there's the Yavimaya Coast. We are going to hard cast the Deep Analysis. Draw 2. And Terran seemed to be very much in control of this match. He does have a Roar of the Worm he can flashback next turn. There's a Rotting Giant. And Rotting Giant needing to exile a card from his graveyard to attack or block, or it gets sacrificed. But luckily TK having plenty of cards. Ooh, and getting aggressive here, not even offering the double block potentially. Swinging for 2. Pass to you. So the chance of that Roar of the Worm coming back is pretty high, assuming Terrence remembers it's in there. Alright, first, let's do some research. Draw 2, discard 2. Just pitching 2 lands. And TK going to 2. And I'm also just realizing now there is a Wonder in the graveyard, and Terrence does have islands, so that makes sense why TK is not offering the jump blocks. He literally cannot block this worm. And we are going to go to game number 2. I swear, the amount of times I forget about Wonder in the graveyard when I literally narrate that it goes to the graveyard is probably too high. Much easier to be on the ground in those instances. I'm sure Terrence reminding TK only the one time that was necessary. Ooh, there's a Tempting Worm. And a lot of lands. But also a Terminate. 2? Is that 2 Terminates? Okay, this might actually be a keepable hand there for TK. I see lands and spells for Terrence. And we are going to go with a turn 1 Duress here. And let's see what you find. Alright, you can hit a Roar of the Worm. That's unfortunate. Basking Root Walla, a bunch of lands. Arrogant Worm. So yeah, have to take the Roar of the Worm. Yep. Can't take the creature. It is not Thoughtseize. And Terrence can be nice and play open for us. Much appreciated. Alright, we're just going to do the same thing we did last time. Turn 1 Root Walla. There's maybe something to be said to holding on to Root Walla against a discard deck. But does TK just go? No, he's going to terminate the Root Walla. There was an instance there where I thought maybe he was just going to jam the worm. It does give Terrence quite the advantage in lands, because remember, he gets to play as many as he wants. But opting not to do that, which is probably smart. He does have a Terminate, though, for the Arrogant Worm, but he's probably just going to be holding it up for Roar of the Worm. Alright, bouncing a land to hand. And just going to say go. Holding up Terminate mana, I guess. Alright, there's a Wonder and I think a Circular Logic. Land for turn. Oh no, it's a Tormod's Crypt. Okay. An interesting call on the sideboard. Maybe just seeing the Rotting Giants and thinking the graveyard plays. I guess also the Call there, but no, there's a Hippie. That is pretty good. Didn't Terrence have a Circular Logic? Or was I mistaken? It looks like I was mistaken. That's pretty big. Maybe it was a Deep Analysis. So Hippie going to be able to get in and do some work here. There's something to be said for Terrence leaving mana up, so he can play his Arrogant Worm if it gets discarded. Okay, gonna pay 2 for a Wild Mongrel. Say go. So yeah, I guess the Tormod's Crypt makes sense in context, seeing Call the Herd and the Giant. Okay, we're gonna get in for 2 here. And I think the best target that TK can hit is the Arrogant Worm, but instead hits the Wonder. You can't play the Arrogant Worm. Alright, well, that is unfortunate. I'm going to remember now that Wonder's in the graveyard, and Terrence has flying. And there's the Arrogant Worm, or the Tempting Worm, I should say, which will let Terrence play out his land and Arrogant Worm. And there's no reason not to do this. Yep, there's a 4/4. And Terrence not playing out the land. I mean, there is, I guess, a world in which he wants to hold it up to discard to the Wild Mongrel. And there's a Terminate on the 4/4. Pass to you. And now TK fully in control. That Worm being pretty good overall. Wild Mongrel does have flying. He's going to be swinging in for 2 currently. But this is a race he is going to be losing. It's interesting he didn't hold up the Wild Mongrel to prevent the Hippie from getting in. But now Hippie's going to get a free attack. Unless there's a Basking Root Walla. If Terrence has a Basking Root Walla up, this is pretty smart. Oh, there's a Daze. Okay. Taking 7. Down to 7. So lethal on board next turn, potentially. TK just passing it back. Now there is a Roar of the Worm that Terrence can play. Oh, TK catching that, in fact, is not 7, at 9. Alright, there's a careful study. Do some research. Pitches both. I think maybe a last-ditch effort there. And I think he's just forgetting about the Roar of the Worm in the graveyard, which is unfortunate. Alright, swing for 5. Gonna chump block here. And TK gonna fetch. Go to 16. There's an Aquamoeba. That does block the worm. That is one more blocker. But Terrence really just needs to remember Roar of the Worm is in the graveyard. You can flash it back, get a 6/6. Alright, there's an Aquamoeba. Say go. And TK getting really flooded here, but it's gonna not really matter too much. Yeah, got a chump block. the 5/5 here. No, taking it all. Going to 2. If there was a bolt in TK's hand, that would be game. Terrence drawing. There's an Arrogant Worm. Can't play it out. He can Madness it out. So he can functionally have 2 blockers. Nope, it's just gonna say good game, and we're going to game number 3. And here we are in game number 3. I said this before on the channel. I'm going to say it again just in case we have some new viewers. We do get a lot of newer players, newer to the format, back from Magic after a very long break, that sort of thing. So we are not a competitive channel by any means. We try and showcase cool decks, cool brews. Usually the top 8 is when we start getting into the more serious competitive level stuff, but we are not at that point right now. So, and even when we are at that point, I do ask that you be kind in your criticism. If you're being rude, being mean, especially being mean, that's a pretty quick boot out the door. This is a very fun format. I want to keep it that way. And here's a blind named Cabal Therapy. What does TK name? Wild Mongrel would be a good one. Daze would be pretty good. Neither of which are in hand, but now he has a better idea of what he's working with. Or working against, I should say. There is a Hydroblast too. But yeah, basically be nice in the comments. Doesn't take a lot. We're all human. People make mistakes. It's a very complicated card game. You don't need to watch this if you don't like that. I don't need you to watch it if you don't like that. If you can't be nice, you don't need to be here. That's kind of been the stance of the channel all along, and it's worked out pretty well so far. All right, TK going to crack a Blitzstone Mire here, and going to bolt, I'm assuming the Aquamoeba. Yep, take away the free discard outlet. Always a good plan. Maybe wanting to bin that Roar the Worm. Yep, okay, he is gonna retcon that real quick. Good catch. Now Terrence, just remember, it's there. This is, again, a very powerful deck. It does have a very high skill ceiling, but remembering stuff like your graveyard as a resource is very important. There was definitely a world there where Terrence was able to get out of the worm lock that TK had him under in game 2. A 6/6 flyer definitely is going to be hard for TK to deal with. All right, Aquamoeba number 2. Ooh, there's a hippie for TK. Notably, this deck does not run Dark Ritual. I'm a bit on the fence about decks running Hypnotic Spectre without mana accelerants. Oh, there's also a snap for Terrence. That's pretty nasty. Okay, gonna do one. Do the layer trick of bouncing the Gemstone Mines. Probably tapping for black there to play out the hippie. Truly playing into a daze if Terrence had it. He does not. But that hippie is going to get snapped. More than likely. Alright, Aquamoeba going to swing in. TK could block here if he wanted to, but the value in hippie getting a free random discard is too great. Ooh, there's a duress. That's 2 duresses. Alright, duress number 1. That can't resolve before Terrence casts snap, right? Yep. Okay, he is going to snap the hippie back to hand. Untap the lands. Oh, I just noticed he has a Frantic Search too. Don't forget snap untaps your lands. Yep, there you go. So there was a second where he could have cast the Frantic Search. However, I have to imagine TK is, yep, taking the Frantic Search. And then a second duress here. I take a point to do so. And I would hit the blue elemental blast, or the hydro blast, personally. Daze is not that scary. Okay, taking the daze. I mean, it is a free counter spell, but once you know about it, I don't think it's that bad. Better to have that than not be able to cast your terminates. And Terrence actually pitching it for TK there, just to get it up to a 3-1. And there's a terminate. Alright, playing out the Gemstone Mine. Now, TK can decide, does he want the hippie out or get rid of this 1-3? Alright, hippie will resolve past you. Land for turn. Maybe wanted to play that out. Oh, there's another Hydroblast. That makes a little more sense as to why Terrence would discard the one that TK knows about. Alright, Alchemiba swinging in. TK not gonna block. And we'll take 3. Drop to 11. This Alchemiba is doing a decent chunk of work. Alright, combat first. You hit a Hydroblast. And now the Terminate coming down. No? Okay. We're doing Call the Herd. Maybe wanted to save the Terminate for that Roar the Worm, which... Yeah, I think Terrence just realizing it's in there now. If he had played that land instead of... Yeah, I'm going to terminate the Aquamoeba. Okay, he does have an Arrogant Worm here. Although when TK flashes back, the Call of the Herd having 2 3/3s up to double block is not the worst. Oh, he also just has another Terminate. Alright, Terrence now spreading out the cards in his graveyard so he can better see what's going on. That is a great step. He does need one more land for that Roar, and I'm really hoping we get to see him cast it. But here is a second hippie for TK. Losing a Gemstone Mine to do it, drops to 10, and the race is on. Alright, that was... I think a Deep Analysis. It was either Deep Analysis or Wonder. Either one is not a land, which means it's not getting played. So Terrence unfortunately just having to pass it back. Land here for TK. Gonna get in for 7. Threatening lethal next turn. That card does get discarded. It is a Wonder. Okay. And flashing back, Call the Herd here. That all but seals the deal, I think. There's not much. An island's not going to do it. And Terrence extends the hand. TK takes it down in 3. All right, those were some crazy games. A bit of a learning experience, especially if Terrence gets to re-watch this. Always good to see your matches replayed personally. I think that's one of the best ways to grow as a player. Again, be nice in the comments or else. Thank you all for watching. If you made it this far, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Premodern content of a variety of skill levels and a variety of brews. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know what we're all about. If you want to support the channel a different way, Patreon is the best way to do that. Even $1 helps. It does get your name up here on the board with all these other wonderful patrons. Link is in the video description and displayed on screen. Money from the Patreon goes toward travel expenses, going to other tournaments and other places outside of my home city, gear upgrades, and just helping me make more videos in general. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.